This is the certification by Isaka. Isaka is a company in United States, and they deal with a lot of certifications, which is very specific to kind of business perspective, where they also deal with IT, implementation, risk, and all those things. So there are a few certificates such as CISA. Then we have CISA, which is security management. CISA is for auditing. So C-risk is specifically for the risk management. Okay. So the full form of the C-risk is certified in risk and information security control. So here we are able to understand the IT risk and governance and control. So what is happening? IT, as you said, you are deploying firewall, you are implementing routers, networking, and all those things.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. So you will be a technical guy where you know how you to implement, how to configure the network, how the data will be should be traveled from internal to external. You define kind of source IP address, destination IP address with a port, so that you will be communicating between the company or the another side firewall. Okay, so this is basically technical, but now in risk management, in you can say in kind of security assessment. Okay, so everything required a secure area to be monitored. Okay, so now we are into network, but somebody should be there to monitor. Somebody should be there to understand what are the risks related to the networking or related to my devices which I'm going to install. So the C risk topic or the information what they have developed in this will be they will be telling us how we will be able to understand what kind of risk can be applicable towards those devices, those network processes. So it will define those risks. And same time, it will also help us to understand the governance perspective. So what do you mean by governance? Governance basically it's kind of responsibility where you are delivering just to ensure that all the processes what you have defined, people are following. So process in the sense there are documentation perspective where you have policies, you have procedure, you have SOP processes. So these are all documented things. So your role is to develop the document and enforce, make sure that people follow those processes. This is the part of governance. They also define the roles and responsibility within the organization. So hence, you have an entire control of what you are dedicating in your environment to be. If you don't have that governance perspective, you don't have the documentation things such as policy, procedure. So people will not be able to follow and also will not be able to uh, kind of leverage the importance. Okay. And also the employee or the person or the stakeholder, he will not be having something on written. So he may do a lot of violations. He may do whatever things he want to do. But at the end of the day, we cannot catch that particular person or employee or the stakeholder. Why? Because there is no documentation process or the policy. So there is the governance comes into the picture. Okay, and along with that governance, we have controls. So control basically is the safeguard. So this safeguard could be anything. It could be your policy, your technical controls, your process. So all those things comes under your safeguard, which is called as a control. So this is certification is focused on risk management and control assurance. So what do you mean by risk management? So risk management means in every day-to-day life perspective we are living, and we basically uh, deal with a lot of risk in day-to-day life. Okay, for an example, when we go outside for work, so we there are various activities happening, various Scenarios is been generated while we are walking. There could be accidents. There could be unknown. We cannot think out of that. So that could also can happen. So these are all kind of things which we need to expect as a worst case scenario in terms of kind of managing the risk in IT environment. Okay. So, like for an example, we are going outside, and for that matter, we have a car. We inspect the car. We see the tire, whether the tire pressure is correct. We see the water level. We see the petrol, gas, whether everything is there. So, if things are not there, so that is the risk where you cannot able to drive the car. You cannot able to reach at
Yeah. Yeah.
at the area where you are already basically given the commitment you will be reaching on time. So your car is not working. Okay, so that is a risk towards your job opportunity. It could be your financial gain importance meeting will be there. So you're not reaching it on time. So that is the risk you are facing. So similarly, there are a lot of risks in our house. We lock important documents, we lock our money, we lock our precious metal and all those things. Why? Because there is a risk where somebody can rob those my what is that important things or precious material. So this is the risk we are dealing. So how we are going to manage those risks? So we keep those important documents into the locker. We also install CCTV camera to monitor that somebody should not enter in my house and rob those folders or my file which is confidential or my bank details and all. So these are the risks and how we are going to implement the controls. So day-to-day life, we're doing all those things. We are managing the risk every day now and then. Similarly, same risk we need to manage in our IT environment in our organization because because now all the organizations they are 100% and completely they are dependent on technology. We implement the technology, but technology will comes with the risk. So who is going to analyze those risks? Who is going to protect the risk? Who is going to assess the risk as a GRC person or as a risk specialist will going to protect those technology against the risk, threat, and vulnerability. So these are the various areas threat we have. We have risk, then we have vulnerability, and and so on and so forth. We'll be going to learn in depth about those factors. Okay. So this is designed for IT audit, security, and GRC professional. So CRISC is a globally recognized certification in IT risk management. It helps professionals identify and assess the risk, implement effective controls. Controls means the safeguard, how you're going to protect the information, how you're going to protect the firewall, how you're going to protect the data which is going through your firewall. So all those things will come under your control. And also align IT risk with business objectives. It also bridge gap between technical security and business risk decision. So you have people procure the technology. They implement servers, they implement network so that you can transfer the data from your PC to the client PC. They can order. So all those things will be done perfectly. But what if there is a risk where the system is down due to vulnerability or due to hacking attempt, due to malicious attack? So what your task will be? So that is what the business want because business is heavily investing on the product, on the devices. So they want someone to protect also as well, correct? So if the person who is implementing the solution or the devices or the technology, he may not be in a position or he may not get the time also to protect that device. So that's why the risk assessment and this kind of GRC has evolved over a period of time, where this guy will be dedicatedly removing all those risks associated with the technology, and he will going to implement the controls, the safeguards it will protect. Okay, so that is the business
Yeah.
decision where business will recruit, business will invest on cybersecurity, business will invest on GRC so that their devices, their technology is protected from various threats in our environment. So So the key idea is just not securing the system, but managing the risk strategically. Okay, so the risk is not like today you fixed and it is done and dusted. No, it gets evolved. Correct? Because the risk you cannot eliminate. You
Yeah.
can only mitigate. That means you can only reduce the risk. The risk will be there, but it will be little risk. But that little risk can also damage your environment. Tomorrow you have another kind of risk. So this risk will keep on increasing day by day as the technology increase, as the sophistication increase, as the ATP, which is advanced persistent threat, which is there currently. They are all hackers. They are very sophisticated. They can get anywhere, anytime throughout the world. So for them, it is very piece of cake, but we need to protect against those attacks which is happening now and then. Okay, so this is the
Yeah.
module. So
Yeah.
this is the domain which we are going to learn in this certification. So there are four domains. Okay, the first domain is the governance. So the key area will be risk governance, ERM, and the policy. So it captures 26% of the entire syllabus. So it covers risk appetite, risk tolerance, policy, standard, procedure, roles and responsibility, which I have already explained you about the governance. So you will be discussing in depth about how you're going to govern, how you're going to implement those policies in the environment. Then second domain is IT risk and assessment, which cover 20% of the syllabus. And the key area is risk identification and analysis. So here we will be able to understand what are the threats. Okay, what are the threats to an environment and its vulnerability. Vulnerability means the weakness on the system
That's, yeah.
and
Yeah.
the yeah and the likelihood in the sense like the threat will happen. Threat basically it's a negative impact. Okay, for
Yeah.
an example, uh, we have a shop is there which is full of technology, full of mobile devices, laptop. He has everything, but he will secure his kind of he will secure the shop with the locker when he wants to go outside or he want to close
Yeah.
the shop.
Yeah.
Why? Because why he want to close? Because he has a lot of expensive devices which cost huge, and he don't want to lose those. So what he will be doing? He will protect his devices, his shop, and all those things. So the threat for that shop will be the robber. So that is what the threat is. And the vulnerability is basically the lock where the person who is using the lock on the shop. So that lock will be the vulnerability because the lock can be broken.
Yeah.
We need to add more protection. Apart from the lock, we need to think another kind of
A
protection.
camera. Yeah. A camera.
Camera, yes. Yeah, CCTV camera we can protect.
Double lock. Yeah.
Yes. So all those things will be a control where there are various controllers. Camera is basically your deterrent control. So there are deterrent control is there. There are protection control is there. So a lot of controls are applicable based on the requirement. Those controls will be in place. Then likelihood basically how how much time the robber will come and attack to the shop. So that is the likelihood. Like once in a year or twice in a year, he will see the good time, and then he attacks and he can rob those mobile devices and laptops. That is what the likelihood. And the impact is basically once the thief or the robber try to gain access
Right.
to the shop, he can he can take out whatever devices he want. He can take outside. So that is the impact. It could be financial impact. It could be the damage to the shop. These are all basically the impact. Then we have a risk scenario, and then we go into qualitative and quantitative analysis of the risk, and we need to maintain the risk register. So all those risk will be added into the register to review and also to check how controls are working appropriately or not. So that is what we will be discussing in this risk assessment domain. Then third domain is risk response and reporting. So this covers 32%. So risk treatment and control. So here we will be going to provide the response to the risk. Okay, with how you're going to, whether you are basically avoiding those risks or you're mitigating. Mitigating means bringing down to the lower level. Okay, or you are transferring or you're accepting those risks. So this kind of things we'll be discussing in this domain. So control type will be preventive, detective, corrective. Then we'll be discussing on KRI, which is key risk indicator. So key risk indicator, basically, we will be able to see how well the risk is defined and how well my control is protecting those risks or basically mitigating those risks. So that will be defined in the matrices. So that matrix is called KPI. So for an example, we have key performance indicator. So based on our we are working basically, correct? And every year we used to have a performance appraisal for each and every person, each and every employee.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we do here.
based, yeah. So based on what? Based on his performance. What are the tasks he has done? Whether he has done the task with
Mhm.
as a good
Very well.
intent, and he has worked hard, delivered the project, okay, and identified the issues, resolved the issues, and also deal with a lot of escalations and all those things. So based on this, he will be uh, he will be judged. Okay, he will be judged based on that. So that judgment is called the KPI, which is key performance indicator. So similar judgment we need to do in our risk process, which is called KRI, which is about the risk, which is KRI, key risk indicator. So this is how we are going to learn in the third domain. And the fourth domain is IT and security, which covers 22% of the entire syllabus. And it's a technical security domain. It will include network security, cloud security, IAM, endpoint security, data protection, and incident management. So here we will be dealing with all those activity which is happening in an organization. So all those things will be touch based, and all those processes will be defined and understand whether that process is working appropriately or not. So here we will be defining the process, we'll be defining the configuration as well. We'll be defining the technology also, which technology we're going to implement so that we can protect the environment, we can protect our data. So this will be discussed in this topic. Okay, so this is how the domain is, and we'll discuss about the KRI. As I discussed, KRI is a matrix which is used to measure and signal potential risk in an organization. So we are going to measure the risk in our organization based on the performance of the controls which we are going to implement. So in simple terms, KRI tells that something might go wrong soon. So KRI early warning signal of the risk. So if something is not working, something have some problem, so that performance, based on that, we will be able to define the control. So this will give us an alert or indication to implement the control. So we have few examples in security. Uh, Security KPI is percentage of updated unpatched critical vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
So if you have a PC, you have a Windows Server, Windows 10, Windows 11, and Linux Server. So all those systems are the firewall. We have routers, switches, IDs, IPS, all those devices we are having. But every week or every quarterly, the vendor they will release the patch. Why? Because the system is vulnerable. It's a week, so they need to update those patch. So based on that, we will be able to judge that the system is vulnerable. So that percentage we'll be able to get that. So that is what we need to indicate. Then access control is basically you required some kind of mechanism where you identify, where you are authenticating yourself to access some resources. It is not like you have a data confidential, you're not keeping as a open to open to all. So that is not the requirement. The requirement is it should be protected, which is a confidentiality. So I need to protect. So I will be protecting with the help of access control mechanism. I will be going to implement IAM solution. So in that, if I find that there are multiple failed login. So that multiple failed login will be my concern, will be my risk. So based on that, I will be making my KPI. So I need to ensure whether the person is genuine or not, who is logging frequently. Okay.
yeah,
So likewise, we can identify the hacker is trying to access or not.
yeah,
So this is our your access control. Then we have phishing. Again, we need to identify how many clicks that employee has done for the phishing email. Sometimes we test to ensure that the employee understand that this email is phishing email and should not be clicked. So there also we are able to understand the performance of the risk. Then IT operation, which is system service down frequently. So IT operation depends upon the system, which was about technology. If systems goes down every day, so that is the risk to the organizations where they are losing the money. They are not able to generate the revenue. So at the end, company will shut down. Correct? So that is the monitoring we need to do in terms of KRI. Then compliance, again, compliance is basically whatever the things we are drafting down in terms of policies, procedures, regulations, standard, everything should be followed. If you're not following, that will come under your KARI. Okay. So this is
yeah,
how your KRI works. Then we have roles and responsibilities. So these are the roles you can apply for once you have this certification or once you have this understanding of the risk management and all those things. So IT risk analyst is there, GRC analyst you can apply, IT auditor is there, risk and compliance manager is there, information security manager is there, cyber security consultant is there, third party risk management. So these are the rules where we can apply for and we can pursue accordingly.